Okay, you ready? Let's do this. You're listening to Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. This is the podcast that delves deep into the outdoors, will inspire, inform, and get you stoked to explore. And I'm your host, David Webb. Welcome to episode 40 of Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. I'm your host, David Webb. That's right, it is episode 40. Can you believe we have done 40 of these podcasts? Wow, I can't. To celebrate, today, my guest is the inspiring Dave Norona out of Squamish, BC. Dave is a former racer, multi-sport racer who's traveled all over the world competing in everything from running, cycling, rollerblading, eco-challenges, and more, who transitioned into living his best life in the coast mountains of British Columbia, getting out every day, kiting, e-biking, sledding, exploring, basically living the dream. You're thinking, wait, how does he do that? How does he make a living? Well, he's going to tell you. He's going to tell you everything he does, how he does it, how he got there, what he uses, with hopes of inspiring you to get out there more, to challenge yourself, and to be the best version of yourself, because that's all he wants. All right, buckle up and get ready for some serious high-energy inspiration with Dave Norona. All right, Dave Norona, welcome to Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Actually, just in from an e-bike ride this morning up in Squamish, and the trails are magical right now from the last little bit of rain, and the dirt's fresh.
I've been in the office all day, so I'm already jealous. So you're up in Squamish, you e-bike. How about you introduce yourself to our listeners? Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
So my name's Dave Norona. I grew up in Vancouver, just in the Arbutus area. And just before graduating, I got into running and biking. And that took me on the wild adventure of racing all over the world in 12 different sports. And I did that for about 18 years. And then when I retired from racing, which I never thought I'd do, I always tell people, be careful what you wish for because it will come true. I want to do my own adventures and have the trust of sponsors to go do that. And lo and behold, a couple of years after racing, I was doing that. It took me maybe 2 or 3 years to realize that I was actually doing exactly what I wanted to do. And started on a kind of a different approach. I still do lots of human-powered sports, but got into some motorized sports, and that took me in a direction working with Ski-Doo and riding sleds for a living, and that's currently what I do through the winter and ski. And then it's funny, when you talk about motorized sports, people always go, you got out of shape then, which is true in the beginning. And then when you at anything at the high level, you have to be really fit. So now I do lots of different things. What I do in the winter with Ski-Doo and ski. And then in the summer, I'm back in the bike industry, Da Vinci and some other brands. And then I'm really into foiling. So kite foiling and wing foiling and pump foiling. Anytime I can get up on a foil, I love it. E-foiling. And yeah, and I'm really into boating now with my family, which is a whole new adventure.
What was it about racing, and what kind of racing specifically were you into, and what was it that drew you into that?
It was funny. I was at a friend's cabin in Whistler, and I looked at his wall, and there were some medals on the wall, and I was like, what's that? And he's, oh, that's my dad did a triathlon. And I was like, what's a triathlon? This is in 1987 or 89. And so they took me to actually a duathlon. Exercise just lit me up, and it didn't really matter what it was. Obviously, the first thing was running because that's what you're made to do. I grew up playing soccer a little bit.
I mean, it's the first thing you do, right? As a kid, they start running. They can't ride a bike. You can't ride a skateboard. You start running.
And it was just through school. It was like, that's what you did. And so I got into a few running races. And then when I saw these duathlons, when I was getting close to graduating, I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. And I don't really want to waste time in a university or college. And I bought a bike, and I had some runners, and I started training. So that's first year out of high school. I did every duathlon, which is a running cycling event that I could possibly do from Vancouver to Oregon. I would drive down and I would race, and I got quite good fairly fast and put myself on the junior team and started racing all over and picked up some sponsorship. And funny enough, I was down in California and I bought some rollerblades. Remember rollerblades when they first came out?
Oh, I was a big rollerblader. I loved the rollerblades.
I know. So funny. So we had seen them. They were at Expo 86, and I was in California, and this woman goes, my friend's the rollerblade rep. And I was like, I didn't even know what a rep was at that point. So we picked these up and because I was training, I was like, this is a good training tool. So I used to skate from my house, which was at 25th and Arbutus. I'd go out to 16th and I'd skate up 16th. And if you go up 16th, you know how big that hill is. I'd skate all the way out to UBC and do a loop and then come down. I used to come down that same 16th hill in a full tuck. Or I entered a race because rollerblade came up to UBC it was at, and I entered and I was cross-country skiing at the time and I wore my cross-country ski suit and I was doing these triathlons and I had this Aero helmet way back in the early 90s. So I wore that because I was always just, I'm going to wear this. And I won the race. It was funny. I get to my running group on Tuesday and the guy pulls out the huge sun paper and I had a 1/4-page photo of me wearing this helmet.
Awesome.
I tell people it's embarrassing. Rollerblade called me up and said, hey, we'd like you to race for us. I was like, oh, that would be amazing. It took me on a whole different path of another sport. Once you're fit, you can do lots of different sports.
Yeah, I got much love for rollerblading. I was, like I said, I was really into it in the 90s and probably into the early 2000s even, when it had pretty much fallen out of favor by that point in time, to be honest. I was still doing it. It's interesting. I think about myself. I loved to rollerblade back in the day. Love cycling. I love running. But it never even occurred to me to pursue that professionally or even competitively. So what was it about the competition that really lit you up, as you say?
Yeah, I always tell people I never had an ambition to climb a mountain or climb a specific place or win a certain race or whatever. I went to my first duathlon, which is a running, cycling, and I was like, I finished and I was like, before I could get to the finish line, I was like, I was just drawn to it. What it instilled in me is a drive to go out and find new sports and just learn them. I got into cross-country skiing because I was racing and I needed something in the winter. And my running coach at the time said, you got to come out and do some races. I was like, what? But at that point, I knew that racing was the best way and the quickest way to improve. And of course, you weren't that good at the beginning, but the gains again came fast and furious. And then you saw those improvements and that encouraged you to train more and do all these things. That became like literally my life. So I was doing all the things that I love to do. And who wouldn't love to go out and do all these things every morning? And it just became addictive. It's like anything. And I loved, for instance, I used to go paddling every morning in Deep Cove. And I loved the fact that I was the only one driving to Deep Cove. While on the other side of the parkway was just going to work. And I was just like, I would almost relish in it. Like you were almost cheating, right?
That's what I felt like this morning, or just now when you said that you were out on your bike this morning. And I was like, man, that's pretty sweet. If I'm understanding it, like racing, competitive racing was almost like a measure of your training. So you could measure what you were doing by actually going out and racing and be like, okay, I've improved in this regard, more so than the competitive edge of defeating your competition.
Yeah. What took me out of racing was the measuring stick. We often don't talk about it in sports, but got me stopping to race was at the time, people knew me because I was winning races, but they knew me more because they're like, that guy is an animal. Like he parties. Obviously, we both know Kevin Valley. He was a good friend of mine. I used to get up. I could go to a party and party all night till 2 a.m, walk home, and I would get up like instantly at 5:30 and I'd be up Cypress Mountain at 6 because they allowed you to go on before the mountain even opened before. And I'd be cross-country skiing and I'd be going down. And Kevin one day, he goes, I can't believe it. We're at that party and then I'm driving up and you're driving down and I know you've already put in 2.5 hours. And it was obviously I would wake up and feel as bad as everybody else. But after the 2 hours of cross-country skiing, I felt great, fresh air. And seriously, I tell people, I said, if I never raced, I would have done the same thing. But the racing was also super exciting because I started to race all over the world and I did a bunch of eco challenges. I was racing everywhere. And so I'm not a person you meet people after, what are you doing after high school? Oh, I'm going to China. I'm going to go to Thailand. And I was never that guy who could do that. And racing actually allowed me to go to all these really wild places. And I would take a day or 5 days after to explore. My sister, on the other hand, she's also a very good athlete now. She was the traveler. She would go and learn all these languages. And so I just started to experience all these things that I had never experienced. And they just became euphoric, really. But racing took me to all those places. got me more adventurous in that respect.
It's interesting you said that you were able to stay out late and get up and go when your friends weren't going. What is that X factor that you have? What do you think it is? Is it just a passion? What enables you to do that?
It's the excitement. If it was something I didn't like, it wouldn't be the same. There's not very few things I don't like, even work. Part of my job is sponsorship and was from the very beginning. I tell kids today, sponsorship's a job. You got to go to work every day and you got to do it. If you do, you'll be rewarded. If you just think, oh, I'm good, someone should pay for this. One of the things why I'm well sponsored even to this day is I don't ever want to be a freeloader. The first thing I tell sponsors is if I'm not making you money, fire me immediately. And they look at you like you're some sort of alien because 95% of the athletes are literally their handshake is an open hand of what are you going to give me? And I never wanted to be that person. I always use this as an example, right? If you're the Oakley rep, guess how many friends you have? Everybody's your friend. These are all learning points. Of course, I was a young athlete once too. And as you get sponsorship, you think you're special. One of my first sponsors was Power Bar. I learned pretty quickly if I met you and you said I was eating a Power Bar, you're like, hey, how do you like those Power Bars? And I said, I'm sponsored by Power Bar. The first thing that you're in your thought is nothing this guy is going to say is true because he's going to tell me how great they are. And I learned pretty quickly, like I never told anybody what my sponsorship was or that I was sponsored. I go, well, I love these bars. And actually, I only love the chocolate. I hate every other flavor.
Authenticity. That's what people connect with for sure.
Yeah. And one of the things I guess I'm most proud of, this is later when I started working for Skew, we got a media trainer and this is like from the second largest marketing company in the US. And they said, you're totally 100% authentic. Like you're not trying to sell anything. And the answer is exactly true. In however many 35 plus years I've been working with sponsors, over 60 of them, I've never blanket sponsored, sent out resumes. How I got on with Oakley was I wrote them a letter back in the day, computers or whatever, wrote them a letter and said, hey, I'd really like to do this. And they wrote me back and said, we can't help you out, but we'll offer you a deal on some glasses. So I bought a couple pair of glasses and I sent them every race result, the things I was doing. This is in the early 90s. Remember word art on your computer? So I used to go on my computer and I made a newsletter out of word art. And I used all those fancy fonts that we laugh at now. It would say, this is what I've done. It would list the last 5 races I've done. This is what I'm doing. And this is what I've been up to in my training, just like fun stuff or funny stuff that we did, running the West Coast Trail in a day or paddling the Barron Lakes in a day, all those things. One day when I was talking to Oakley, the guy, you know what he said to me? He goes, hey, you were just here. And I go, I couldn't believe he knew what I had done because I didn't think it. And I would mail these out.
Was reading it.
I printed them off on the computer and obviously they went out by mail. And he goes, you know what, Dave? What I love about you, he goes, sometimes I give people gear and I don't hear from them till the next year when they want more gear. But every month I get this newsletter with what you're up to, what races you're doing and all that stuff. And he goes, because people don't understand that guy's job is to market Oakley.
He needs metrics. He needs metrics. I deal with it every day. We need metrics.
Exactly. I was just going to say, you better than anybody. I go, that just doesn't get a budget. He has to justify his budget. So my job, and I always thought as an athlete, was, dude, if I make this guy look good, he's going to help me. And so my job is to make him look good, or her look good. And it wasn't like contrived like that, but it was just, that's where all that comes from. My dad was a businessman and I consider myself a business person. The truth is I don't want a free ride. I want to work for my money. And when I got an amazing amount of jobs from these companies, they saw that I could do more than just run and do all these other things. I can also do social media, and I'm not an expert in anything. Anybody could do what I'm doing. You just have to have the thought process to do it.
Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I realize that it is a job and you are working hard, but it's clear to me how much you're passionate about this. And then that breeds that innovation. Back in the 90s, you're like, how are people going to know about it? I'll use whatever technology I have available to me to do that. And that's word art and envelopes and stamps, and I'll send it out. I've talked to the same people who've been doing this a long time, and they tell me similar stories about getting addresses off the back of cereal boxes and writing letters to them back in the day and things like that. And really just doing it regardless, but trying to make a go of it at the same time. It's inspiring to hear that. And really, as much as things have changed, no one's mailing things to people anymore. Not much anyway. But that same innovation and passion and working at it, treating it like a job, taking it seriously, taking the responsibility seriously is great advice for sure.
Yeah, I think the number one thing you just said there is responsibility. We're all responsible for ourselves, whatever we get up to and do. I'm pretty hard on athletes now because I go, you got all these tools and you're not using them. And one of the problems is they're not taught to use them. I have a young daughter. She's too young to do any of this, but I saw it when I was racing. There'd be a lot of juniors. They're 14, 15 to 16. They're really good. Kids get really good these days because equipment is really good. They don't do anything, right? Like they live at their parents' house. Their mom and dad cook them breakfast, cook them food, buy them equipment. But what happens is these athletes get really good and they're coddled, right? And then all of a sudden at 20, every parent goes, well, we can't just keep paying for them because we want to create a healthy adult. And are they going to go to school or are they going to get a job? And are they going to pay a little bit of rent and all that? Because they want the person to be a good human being. And so what happens is these kids get a shock, right? Like it's like you wake up and you go, now I got to get a job. So how am I going to train and get a job? And there's boys and girls and it's all these distractions, good distractions, come at them at once. And I've seen so many athletes or kids quit, right? Because they get a job too much. And I see this all the time with coaches, right? Like you train a kid and they get really good, but you haven't given them the other 8 skills that they're going to need. And everybody's fighting a battle. And that's, you either wake up to the challenge or you don't. And I think it's important for everybody to know that. Even when I was a junior, I went through it, right? There was probably 5 kids that were like top triathletes and they all had fancy bikes. They all had this and they had that and they were amazing. Like they were kicking my butt left and center. And it was easy to say, oh, they got all the fancy gear and they're all this and they're all that. And then as I got older and knew some of them that kind of petered out early, I was like, they were having a hard time dealing with this. And I never saw that. It's looking back on racing, right? It's so funny. I go, it's funny how we try to make racing fair. It ain't fair. It is never fair, right? The best quote that I love is, don't be better than someone else. Be better than you were yesterday. That's all I was trying to do. I would do these workouts that were like, what did I do last time? And how did I do this? And because I did it a lot and I loved it, of course, I went out on the weekend and raced and did very well. And sometimes I didn't do well. I was back to the drawing board. But that's the biggest distraction in life, is watching what other people are doing.
Do you think that's the biggest benefit that you've gotten from all this sport and competition, adventurous lifestyle, the self-improvement, underlining ethos of becoming better than you were before?
100%. And you know, why I also know that is, it's funny, when I stopped racing, people are like, what are you going to do now? Racing's your whole life. And I'm like, what? Racing has just been my life until this point.
Yeah.
And then I started doing other stuff and I'd run into people and, what are you doing? You're not doing anything now. And I was like, dude, I'm kiting every day and I'm doing this every day and I'm dirt biking every day. I took all that energy and it just went in a different direction. Now I'm discovering all these other incredible things that I would have never. My parents didn't own snowmobiles, and how would I ever get into that? It enabled me to try that and then go, wow, what I use to get out there isn't that important to me. I get out there. And so I want to get way out there. For instance, people will be like, oh, snowmobiles. Wow, that's a total motorized sport. And it comes with a whole connotation of, and I'm like, wow, like we use them to go way back and we'll go ski touring off them or sled skiing. And we're in an area that's the size of Whistler Blackcomb and there is no one there. And there will be no one there for a week or 2 weeks or the whole winter. So imagine we're eating lunch, you and me, halfway through the day, and you're looking around and you're like, there's no one here. And you're like, yeah, that's why we're here. And then you're like, I'm going to ski that line and then I'm going to go ski that line.
You were looking further out. You're like, okay, I want to try new things. And those new things they were facilitated by skidoos and e-bikes, wing foiling and things like that. It wasn't the sport, is where it took you, so to speak.
Honestly, what happened was I was winning a race. I was winning the summit in Panorama. Second day, riding mountain bike, leading. And I was like, I just sat up on my bike and I sat up and I was like, I'm over being measured because I started to measure myself against other people. And so then, of course, I was winning all these races and people wanted to then beat me. And then I was like, I'm not out to be beaten. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Truth is, if someone caught me in a race, I usually finish together with them. I wouldn't want to sprint. I'd be like, David, you caught me. This is awesome. Let's do this. And really, suddenly we were best buddies. And not every athlete saw it that way. They were better or worse than me for thinking that. I said, wouldn't it be cool if I could do all these adventures and have the trust from my sponsors to do what I want to do?
So getting a bit more creative, you wanted to get a bit more, rather than being locked into a triathlon, you want to just imagine a scenario for yourself and accomplish it.
Exactly. I bought a dirt bike and I started to go out and I was like, wow, this is a really hard sport and really tough. And I was riding really hard areas. And suddenly I was doing that every day. And I was just getting my training to do that. And I said, I was learning to spread my wings. And the funny thing about all this was that's when social media started to come around. Okay. So this was like 2006, 2007. And suddenly all these sponsors, I had a huge amount of sponsors and I was making good money. And suddenly all these sponsors, like they needed content, not race content. That's more needed content, whether it was the North Face or Patagonia or Rocky Mountain Bikes, they needed content, people showing people using our bikes. And I was like, I was doing it every day, all day. So I had all this content and my sponsorship just went up and up. And I had some articles that I wrote. I had one of the North Shore News. I had some magazine stuff. And so I would do, I call it triple dipping, right? Your sponsor's paying you to write a story. Then you get other sponsors involved because they can be at the bottom of the story. And then you have a gear thing associated with it. So you get those, it was snowballing. And so it taught me that I can go out to chase all these things.
So you've been in the sponsorship game a long time. Who are you working with today?
My main sponsors are Skidoo, and I work with a whole bunch of sponsorship in each sport. Another big company I work with is Zoleo. They make a satellite communicator. In the mountain bike industry, I work with Da Vinci, and I boat now with my family, and I have sponsorships in that category. I've used all my learning experience to all these products that we use out of the boat, the e-foil, pop-up dock, all these things become like, hey, if you want to have a good time and you're looking for a better time out on the water on your boat, these are some of the products that I look for. And so that's how sponsorship for me happens is I look at a product and go, I need that product because that's going to make my experience better. And fortunately for me, I've worked with all the best companies. But not to say that Da Vinci is the best bicycle company in the world, but most of the bicycles that are made today, mountain bikes, are all really good. So you're really just showing the value of why, like you take a Da Vinci, like why their e-bike's really good. It isn't $18,000. No one can afford that. They make an awesome bike and they have levels and all those things that, like, I've turned down sponsorship from companies that are so high end that it's, dude, nobody can afford this. I want to be the person that people can go, yeah, and I can afford that and I can use that. And yeah, I got that and you're right. And I get it from the other end, right? It's, all you do is you're just a shill, right? It's probably the worst comment someone could say to you is you're just a self-promoter. And I go, that's totally not true. And if that was true, all I have is my reputation. So if I tell you to buy that and it's terrible, are you ever going to listen to me? No, I'm not. People can say as an athlete, you're confident and you're tough. I remember when I stopped racing, someone who looked up to me a long time said, I used to look up to you all the time. And he goes, now I have no respect for you. Said it right to my face. And I looked at him and I wouldn't say that to my worst enemy. It says more about that person than me. And I remember it to this day. And that was around 2007. But that, you just put that in your piggy bank and go, yeah, don't ever really pay attention to that person. Right. And so you see all these things happen to you and you remember them. And so you can spend your life trying to make that not true, or you can say, Deepak Chopra said it, right? If someone called you a kitchen sink, would you believe it? And the answer is no. You'd say that's stupid. Why would you believe it? Then why are you believing that person on that? Because that's all they're doing is they're using the most hurtful way they know how to do something to someone. And your job should be not to listen to that and keep going in the direction that you want to go. And I've learned that early. And that's why I've gotten to do so many things to this day. My life is amazing. All I've ever done is follow my heart. Every day we get out of bed and we can go right or left. I just go the way I feel.
It's interesting to think about that, though, when it just got me thinking, like, Okay, so going back 35 years ago or 30 years ago, back in the 90s, when you're racing, you're traveling the world, saying yes to everything by the sounds of it, yes to these great opportunities. You have a family now, you're older. Like, what changes for you? How do you adapt that lifestyle to differing responsibilities? What has changed in the way you approach your adventures?
I do a lot more with my daughter and my wife I've always done stuff with. There is a separation there when you have a kid. And so we homeschool our daughter. I don't think she's ever been away from her mom. We love her to death, right? So we had our daughter when we were older. And so we only have one. I would come home. I would go sledding in the morning. I get up at 6. I'm on the mountain by 7. I ride till about noon or 1. I come home and I would grab our daughter, put her in the wrap. And I'd go walk around. I'd go walk through Squamish for 2.5 hours in the rain or whatever it was. And people would stop and say, "Are you okay? Do you need a ride?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm totally warm. Like, I got this baby on me and we're walking."
Yeah.
And I did that every day. And so then as she got older, we would be on one of those we had a Benno bike. So it was an e-bike that she would be on the back and we'd do all these adventures around town.
Nice. Yeah.
She has just adapted into my life and she does all these things. She's 9. She's on her second e-bike and we race around. The problem with giving a kid an e-bike when they weigh 50 pounds and they're 9 years old is you can't beat them.
Too fast?
The e-bike is all about weight. We race up hills and she just started mountain biking. I took her on her first off-road trail. That was a trail that I rode when I first came to Squamish in the early 90s called Rusty Bucket. That was like in the 90s. So it's 35 years later, I'm riding Rusty Bucket with my 9-year-old. And we ski together. Hardest thing, I guess, it hasn't been that hard for me is after racing, I could never go into a job that I'd have to go into. So I created all this stuff around me so that I don't have to go in. I have to do certain things with sponsorship and all these things have to get done. I can do them in and around with my wife and my daughter. And so that's what we do as a family. And then in the summer now, we leave our house and we got a boat. We live on our boat in Desolation Sound for 3 months.
So you're way out there for 3 months at a time.
Yeah, we go.
Yeah.
And again, people would be like, "Wow, how do you afford to do that?" It's actually cheaper than living in Squamish. I don't have a brand new boat. I've got an awesome boat, but it's a 2002 Bayliner 2858. It's got a command bridge and it's like a little apartment. If you lived in Vancouver and you were single, you could live in it. We live on that and we have a pop-out dock out back. We swim every day and we pump surf and e-foil and we do all these things.
That's a pretty special summer for sure. My kids are 5, they're twins, and we're figuring that out now. These opportunities that you can take and the things that can facilitate it to make these like really magical experiences that are providing something quite a bit more enriching than a screen, unfortunately, that has permeated our culture. But at the same time, it's funny because I do think like all these technologies that can be problematic in a lot of ways. You mentioned you work with Zoleo. I'm sure that really helps you with the satellite communicator. Being on the boat for 3 months probably really facilitates that, or having a kid, having a wife and responsibilities. So if you do want to go take your skidoo out to the backcountry for 4 days, myself with 2 kids, if I didn't have some type of way of communicating home, that would be a bit harder sell. And it would also be a lot more anxiety inducing for me too, to be just cut off like that entirely.
You said it best that one of my number one sponsors of Zoleo has changed because I tell people honestly, there was no such thing as a Zoleo when I was racing. I was training on my own. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody knew what I was doing. I used to do all these crazy things. And then at some point you go, I'm making people feel uncomfortable. Like my wife would be scared of, I don't know if you're alive or not until you come home at the end of the day. And sometimes not at the end of the day. It's like when you arrive home, you still have to get in to cell coverage. So that could take another hour.
And one little delay, right? You're like, I'll call you at 6 p.m. because that's when I'll hit cell phone coverage. Then you get a little delay, then it's 7. Then she spends an hour in like anxiety mode for no reason whatsoever or something like that.
And that's about that time. This is like 2010, 2011. I got involved with Road Post and they had InReach. So they were the distributor for InReach at the time, and I used one of those.
That's the Garmin product that a lot of people might be familiar with, the satellite community.
Yeah, so I started with that, and I was like, this thing's unbelievable. I actually had a crash on my snowmobile and broke apart. I emailed the dealership and sent a part with someone who was coming to this cabin we were at, and we fixed it that night. And I was like, this is unbelievable. And so that just took me down this rabbit hole of working with Road Post on InReach first up until They sold it to Garmin in around 2017 or 16. And then they own the messaging part of it. So I just used my old devices that I had. They were old, and I stayed with them and I said, well, what's going to do now? And at that point they were like working on something new. And then I did some beta testing before it came out, before Zoleo, as we know it came out. I was like, this thing's unbelievable. And I said, how much is it going to be? And they said, oh, it's going to be $269. At that point the inReach was $500 and $600. That was the hardest sell or hardest thing for people to buy, because they go, I just go and hike the Gross Grind once in a while, or I do this hike. I can't spend $500. As soon as I heard the price, I'm like, everybody should have one of these or will have no problem purchasing one of these. And I was super excited. And the Zoleo was born. It came out and it took off. It was like it won all these awards. I use it every day. And here's an example. I wake up every morning and I go e-bike riding or I go e-foiling, and I am out of cell. People don't realize in Squamish, much like they do on the North Shore or anywhere in Vancouver, like you can be on cell range on the local mountains and you could die. Not to be over dramatic, but you could fall, hurt yourself really bad and die.
So quickly.
Yeah.
So quickly you leave cell phone service. It's unbelievable. People who live here know, but people who, particularly who maybe don't go out a lot or who come from elsewhere, tourists or whatever, you just can't even believe it. You park your car 500 meters, you look at your cell phone and it's done. There's nothing there anymore.
So even in Squamish, 3/4 of our trail network is out of cell. So people don't think that because they're on a bike and you're moving quite fast. But if you wipe out in one of our trails, it can be an 8-hour extraction. And if you're riding a trail that not a lot of people know about, is somebody even going to find you? So carrying a device like Zoleo, which is a satellite communicator, so it basically works anywhere in the world and allows you to text or email or check in. So a check-in message would just be one button you push on it, and your 5 people that you want, like your mom and dad and your wife or whatever, your best friend who would say, come and save you if you needed to, if it wasn't a 911 emergency, they get an email, a map, location of where you are.
It's like an I'm okay.
And
right?
so part of this whole thing is that I have a plan with my wife. You don't have to email me back. I send one every 30 minutes. So if you don't get one after an hour or something's wrong. And one of the cool things about Zoleo is it has a number associated with the device. So if she doesn't hear from me, she can just go on that number and text me, hey, are you okay? She doesn't have to wait. On all the other ones, you have to wait till someone sends you a message. Zoleo is the only one that has a dedicated number. Yeah. She can message me and be like, are you okay? And if she never got a response, she now knows that something probably isn't okay because I haven't responded. I haven't sent her anything and I'm not responding to her messages. Most people are like, hey, he left for a mountain bike ride at 8 o'clock. It's 5 PM. The police usually require there's a certain distance of time there. And now we haven't heard him. And now it's like a search party and it's all these things. And there's a lot that could have happened in that time. So now they know the location of where I am. So it just gets people there faster, whether it's I've on a dirt bike and I've run out of gas and I'm just walking out and I didn't think to send a message and then that's a story, or I've hurt myself and I'm unconscious and now they can know where I am. And then the second part of that is it helps search and rescue, because if it is not a 911 SOS call, they can email back and forth. Who is this? What's the problem? Obviously, if you're knocked out, they're coming right away because you're not replying. But it also can be, there's a difference between breaking your back or your femur and then spraining your ankle. So it helps search and rescue, not that they're not going to come in, but it helps them with their resources come in hard when they need to and not as hard when they don't need to. So there's all these things that help on the back end, right? People would always say, I'm hurt. Of course, they should come in with a helicopter, but a helicopter costs a lot of money and they can't just waste that money. They have to be accountable to it. So you help in that respect on the other end as well. So with using these devices, there's a whole plan that goes into, and the first part is a plan. Have your plan, right? So I have a plan with my wife of how often I send a check-in message.
How long does the battery last? Do you ever run into these problems? It was supposed to be 30 minutes, but my battery went dead and I didn't notice for 3 hours.
So a Zoleo battery lasts 200 hours. If you're doing, say, a 2-week trip, you can shut it off when you're not using it. But if you're going out for the day, and it has an easy way to know your battery life, it works with an app on your phone, which tells you all that stuff. So you can then text and email off your phone. Now, the biggest thing now we hear a lot is my phone does that. And I love my iPhone. I'm not an iPhone hater. I tell people that right away. But here's the thing. Your iPhone doesn't do it the same way. It uses a different satellite network, which is called Globalstar, and they have less of those satellites. And you also need to hold your phone out to look for the satellites, okay? Because it's not a satellite communicator, it's a phone, okay? So it will do certain things. So I've done this all winter because I'm out every day, and I haven't yet to be able to send a satellite signal from my phone home, because you have to have your phone out. So say it's snowing or it's really brutal, you have to stand there until it finds a satellite, and then it has to stay on that satellite, send the message, and it has to go. And if it's snowy or windy, you just don't do that. Or if you're at a cabin and it's windy and gusty out, you're standing outside with your phone. I just put my Zoleo on the porch outside, and I go inside the cabin because it Bluetooths my phone, and I do everything off my phone. It doesn't make my phone live, but messages send out in less than a minute.
Okay, so it queues it up till the satellite passes over. If I know my satellites, it must be using the Iridium network.
That's right.
I've used some communicators in the past that use Globalstar. And again, I'm not the guy that likes to trash other things.
Yeah.
I'll give honest reviews or whatever. But it was often quite a pain to get a message out, to be honest. You're kind of looking at this thing like, does this even work? And then eventually it does or whatever. You're walking around holding something up to the sky for 20 minutes. So yeah, that's really nice to know, because I think anyone who's maybe used a satellite communicator 10 years ago or something like that might have these memories using that network.
Before I got an inReach, I had 2 incidents, one on Baker and one I got caught out on a snowmobile, fogged in, and we had to walk out. We were fine in both cases. Someone bought me a spot. I tell people, I go, hey, you don't have to listen to my story. Go online and listen to all the stories of people that it took 30 minutes to send a message, or it didn't send at all. It's like, that's not what I want in an emergency. It's fine if you're just like, yeah, I'm texting for what time's dinner, but not if you're like, hey, I'm down and I got a broken femur. The Iridium network is the only, if you ask anyone about a sat phone, it's the only network to get it. It doesn't matter what sat phone is, but it's on the Iridium network. So it's the same with these devices. You want to be on the Iridium because they're the largest, there's no blackouts, and it's the fastest, and it's in less than a minute. So that makes the hugest difference. And I don't mind saying that, because it's not me telling you that, because the Spot product, you can have a nice smartphone, you can have an iPhone, but if you're on ABC network and you're not on the 2 networks that are popular around here, you don't have as much coverage, and that's your downfall. So that's the case, unfortunately, with Spot. And then when we moved from inReach, which is a great product, I used it for years, but what made it change is that the inReach was great for its time because it had mapping and it had all these things, but to use it fully was really expensive to buy, and then actually still is expensive to use. So if you use the mapping on an inReach, every time you put a ping, like you're doing a hike and you want to, I want to hear and I want here, if you have a cheap package, it's $1. So you could go out and set pings over the weekend and cost you $40. So number one, the Zoleo is half the cost to buy. And then it's $25 a month at the lowest cost that gives you unlimited check-in and 35 messages. I don't use more than that. And I'm out every day. Everybody should have this. You can have it off in your pack at the very least. So if something really bad happens, you turn it on, you know how to use it, and you call the proper people and they come and help you. And that's what they're for. And so for the cost effectiveness of it, not only for me as the user, but for search and rescue. Like, the problem with British Columbia is we live in the best place in the world. We are spoiled beyond belief. We have the best oceans, best forests, best mountains. Sure, there are incredible places to go like Nepal and BDI and all these things for fun and whatever. But if you look at British Columbia as a whole, you just go, no one has it better than us. And anybody who travels here knows that. They just go, wow. And so what happens is, like you said, you can be in your office right now and you could be like, hey, David, let's go do the gross grind after work. And I know this secret place we can go and it's off the beaten path, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I didn't bring this and this. You're like, whatever, dude, we've done it all the time. And so that's what happens. People just hit it really fast. They carry less stuff. So they haven't made a plan. And then they're willing to go because it's so easy to go, right? If they had to drive 4 hours to Whistler, then they'd stop on the way and pick up a few things, but they don't. We have these amazing people in search and rescue that are volunteers that have to leave their jobs and families to go rescue them. And they love that. And the best part of those people is They'll come and rescue someone on the gross grind for the 500th time, and they're not gonna backlash them, and they're not gonna say they're stupid. They're just gonna be like, yes, this happens, but please, if you can, don't do this. And so there's programs like Adventure Smart and all these things that we can do as responsible users of our beautiful backcountry. It doesn't cost anything. And then we can purchase products like Zoleo and like a Space Blanket and all these things in our little pack that we always keep in our car. So we're ready to go when someone calls us at the last.
Yeah.
And if something happens, we can help them save money.
I love that perspective on that because that's such a great way of looking at it. It's almost like a leave no trace ethos or something like that. It's like you are going out and you're being respectful to all users and stuff. And in this way, it's okay, if you're going to go out and you're going to take the 10 essentials, including a communication device, that's being respectful to the search and rescue people that will literally put their own lives in danger to come find you if something goes wrong. It's being respectful to them and appreciative of what you're allowed to do and appreciative of the environment to go out there and say, yeah, and if I choose to bomb up the gross grind with 90 minutes of light and I sprain my ankle halfway up, I'm not going to make everyone else's life a living hell. I'm going to be able to communicate with them. I'm going to be able to say, hey, I'm here. They're going to come get me and it's all going to end up okay.
Yeah, you just make everybody else's life easier, and that saves time, energy, and money. For example, is in the winter, if you see an avalanche and you come across a group, you hit the SOS, and it's like they know your location, they know there's something up. You arrive at the scene, and everybody's accounted for. Or if they were, they're out. We can get out under their own power. So you've just saved search and rescue having to fly helicopters and people into a dangerous situation. Now they're going to, if you can turn a rescue down, right? You press the SOS. So now and then you go, hey, we've accounted for everybody. Everybody can ride out. I'm here. They're not just going to be like, okay, they'll probably have someone meet you at the trail to make sure that everybody is okay. But that's one or two people, not the whole search and rescue has dropped everything in their little town to come and help when they didn't need to. If they need to, they're there. And that is, it's just a whole part of, I think what you said is beautiful. It's just leave no trace. It's a responsible way to use our backcountry. So there's levels of what these devices allow you to do, from the very simple of just having it in, look, when you drive over the Duffy Lake Road, you have zero cell coverage. You drive off the highway there, who's coming to rescue you? I have my Zoleo in my truck all the time because if that happens, I hit the button up to the satellite. They know exactly where I am. And they know everything, the location, the timeline, where I am, all that stuff. And now they're not guessing. So it's not just for someone who's going extremely into the backcountry.
I think that's a big differentiator there when you look at the price and the plans. And I know a lot of people working with Explore do serious adventures. They're fine with buying $700 devices, $1,000 sat phones and paying these things because this is what I do. I spend 2 months up in the Northwest Territories. I'm cool with that. I think it's a harder sell for the weekend warrior to invest in that $99 a month plan or whatever when they're just like, oh, I'm going to hike 10 times a year. Okay, I hike 12 times a year or whatever. And all those times I go out 10, 15, maybe 20K into the backcountry, but am I going to spend $1,000 a year on this? Probably not. But half that or a third, that's a much easier sell. You can really see these situations, all these rescues, and you see them in the news. Living in Vancouver, obviously, North Shore Search and Rescue, busiest search and rescue in Canada. And you think, man, that would have been a lot easier had that person just pinged a message out and said, this is my coordinates. I broke my ankle. Now it's 90 minutes. They're picked up in a long line in 90 minutes or something like that. It's really fascinating.
And the other thing that's really cool about a Zoleo is you can loan it to your friend, right? So you're the owner of a Zoleo and you've got the app on your phone and we're buddies. And I go, hey, I'm going to this place. You're like, hey, I'm going out this weekend. Take my Zoleo. And so you un-Bluetooth it from your phone, you hand it to me, I download the free Zoleo app. Now I can use your Zoleo with my smartphone. I can also check in and I can email or text. Now remember, if I hit check in, it's going to go to your family and friends, right? So what I tell people is I go, just use the email and text because that's all private. It won't show up anywhere on your feed because it's now on my phone and they all go into the app on my phone. And so I can text and email my wife and friends and whatever. And I can say, I love you, honey. And I'm not worried that you're going to get 20 messages that say, I love you, honey. And who's this from? But they just go to my phone. And if I did need to hit SOS, they would say, oh, is this David? And you're like, no, this is his friend. I'm borrowing it, but this is the problem we have, blah, blah, blah. And now it's all sorted out, right? So they're now not calling your wife going, David's, no, he's in the kitchen with me. But one of the great things that I do all the time, because I have a demo unit, is I loan it to friends. And it's like, they come back, everyone I've loaned it to comes back and is like, I'm buying one of these because it just works so easy. And I can use it at the cabin. I use it mountain biking. I use it hiking. I loan it to my, again, your twins are only 5, but I see this around Squamish, right? 11-year-olds are going out into the network of Squamish where we have cougars and bears and super gnarly trails, just like the
I would feel a lot better if when they're going to be doing that stuff, which I know they will be.
What I was going to say is that you take an 11-year-old kid who mountain bikes in Squamish or the North Shore, and they're amazing. So parents think, oh, my kid's amazing. Not when little Johnny, there's 3 of them, and little Johnny goes down the slab and wipes out and breaks his arm. And now the other 2 11-year-olds, they've never been in that scenario. And they probably haven't done a full first aid course. So they're like, what do we do now? Do we leave little Johnny? Do one of us leave? And so they're just like, they're frantic. And number one, it's not fair to do that to 11-year-old. But if one of them has been taught, like I do this with a lot of my friends' kids, they're like, oh yeah, we got a Zoleo for them. So they just ride. And if any problem happens, they just email and go, little Johnny fell and broke his, okay, where are you guys? Oh, we're at this place. Okay. And it's come up and get him, or we need an ambulance to pick this up. And so it's like you've taken a really bad situation and you've just improved it by 90% of the guesswork. And
so easily too. And I love that thought too, because I think that's true, that people are like, oh yeah, my 12-year-old's, he can throw a backflip on a mountain bike. But when an emergency happens, suddenly they're 12 again. I've seen it happen before. Yeah. Suddenly they're just 12-year-olds and they don't know what to do.
They are only 12, and you see a 12-year-old go to the motocross track and they're going 80 feet over a triple. They come off the track and look at you and you go, holy cow, that kid's 11, right?
Yeah, and then they're just asking for ice cream and going to go read their comic books. And you're like, yeah, that's just a kid. That's just a kid.
That's exactly. And so there's so many scenarios that people just don't think about. And of course, you don't want to be the Grim Reaper and say all these bad things can happen, because I want to go out there and feel safe and doing all the things within my abilities and whatever. I tell people all the time, it can happen to me just as easily it can happen to anybody else. And I'm out every day. Mother Nature doesn't tag you as being a bad mountain biker and you're going to wipe out all the time, and a good one doesn't. It can happen to anybody, anytime. Usually what happens is panic happens because they haven't made the plan. They don't have the gear to back it up, and no one knows where they are. Those are 3 of the simplest things that should just be like, you leave the house, you write it on the little chalkboard that you have by all your coats. Going out riding, these are the trails I'm riding. This is the time I left. Your Zoleo number's in the corner. If an emergency, this number, right? And you just have all those things so that everybody has a plan and it just unfolds like any other plan, right? It's that simple.
And that peace of mind just facilitates those adventures, right? And that's what some of these technologies are so great for, facilitating the adventures. It's not about the gear per se. It's what the gear allows you to do.
It's like Adventure Smart. They're not saying, hey, don't go out. Like, I hate when people say, you're not really that good, you shouldn't be out there. Like that's the elitist view. I go, no. Start with the slows, enjoy the process. Your first hike could be in the Lynn Headwaters Park. And yeah, no one's going to write home about it. But that's where it's, for me, when I come home from a big race, you know what I look forward to? One of the biggest things I love doing? Running around the seawall. I used to park my car down at Park Royal, run over the Lions Gate Bridge, and do an easy lap of the seawall. And people be like, that's not gnarly. And I go, it doesn't need to be gnarly to be awesome. Yeah. And so everybody here who's listening to this, or anybody, they all have a thing that, like you said, I wish I had rollerblades because I'd like to put them on once in a while and rip around this, because that used to be something I love to do. And this is what we want to create for people, is get out, experience all this beauty we have, and however you want to do it. And just have these backups and plan. You're helping yourself, you're helping your loved ones that are worried about you, and you're helping the people who are going to come to rescue you when something does go wrong. So it's a win, right, for everybody.
Yeah. And then you can facilitate your adventures however they manifest, whether they're small, medium, large, vast. I love it. Speaking of adventures, what's next for you? What's the next thing you're going to go do?
Like I said, I'm out every day, so I don't need to do something like crazy. I'm ready to go on the boat. So every day I come home, I've been fixing, I've had to paint some of the house. So some of my adventures have been that, but I get out early and I ride and do all these things. And then I come home and I work on the boat and get that all ready. And what we're just talking about, right? I have my Zoleo, I have Starlink, I have all these things, and we don't have Starlink on our boat. We have it, but we don't use it. We only use it once in a while if we need to. If like wife needs to work or I need to do something or we need to check the weather, we turn it on. Or we want to download a movie, we do that. And then you have it off. And so I use that technology because it's there for safety functions and also fun functions. And then when I'm out on the water, I don't want to be online. I don't need to see what people are doing. I create my own memories. So perfect example, right? I have all these things, but like I have flares, first aid kits, and all these things you need on a boat.
Sure.
What's good about Zoleo is it isn't just a product that you buy and never use. You check in and you can text it. How many times have you been camping with friends and you go down some road and you go, yeah, go 5K and turn right. And then you go, then turn left. And then you go, oh, I missed a turn in there and you're out. If you have a Zoleo and I have a Zoleo and I'm following you an hour behind and we're both out of, you can send me that message. It's incredible how you can do all these things. And I've used them that way. Like I've shown up at a dirt bike ride and late, I was behind by 2 hours and I just used it like SMS text. It's not as fast as SMS text on your phone, but messages go in a minute and you can force check. So I'd be like, hey, where are you right now? Oh, we're here. I'll just cut here and I'll meet you over here. And then as I get closer, check, oh yeah, we're still on this, and boom, we meet up and hey, I showed up 3 hours behind and I'm now riding with my group because we're texting on Zoleo.
I think that's an issue with some people with buying expensive or any type of safety equipment, is that this idea that I'm going to buy this, I'm never even going to use it. But the fact that Zoleo has those other uses, like I'm thinking of maybe like an avalanche airbag or something like that. Technically, you don't ever really want to use that, right? That's the idea, is to never pull the cord. So then you spend $1,000, $1,500 on something you never use.
Yeah.
But with something like Zoleo or the satellite communicator, that you can actually just use it. Yeah, it's an easy sell.
One of the newest things that Zoleo just added was 24/7 medical advice. So you can actually, when you go on your phone and your contacts are all there, it has medical advice. And it's like, do you want a doctor, dentist? Are you looking for a plate?
Oh my God.
So you could actually say and this is why this is really good, is say you're out there with two people are out there and they're not first aid responders, so they don't know a lot. And someone hurts themselves, but they're like, okay, and they don't really know. Instead of, a lot of those people don't call SOS. Okay. So there's two kind of sides to this. They don't know or they don't think, and they don't want to call SOS because they don't want to be irresponsible, which is not the right way to think. I understand that, but
it's human nature.
What they can do is they can message for advice and say, hey, we had a friend, they did this. This is what they're feeling. Their knee, they can walk, but it's starting to inflame. And that medical advice isn't instant. They say it can take anywhere from 1 to 5 to 8 minutes. But they'll email you back and say, can they do this? Because these are actually medically trained professionals. So they can ask you these questions and they might say, hey, call this in as an SOS. Like you're not going to get out of there under your own power.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And so now you've got someone who knows telling you, which for some people they need that. You can also call like, where's the nearest hospital? And they'll tell you the address and everything. Like all that stuff you can do on your Zoleo now. And it's 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And it's free. So it's the only one.
Wow. I was just going to ask if that was some kind of add-on or pay-per use or something like that. Because that's pretty, that's pretty interesting. I've never heard of that before.
So they're adding things that help people. And then they have weather. So say you're out ski touring and you're on a 4-day trip and all of a sudden the storm comes in and you're like, ooh, should we get out of here? And you can go on the weather and you can say, oh, this is now a storm that's like lasting, like it's going to be all week. So we should turn back because going further is not going to be better and we can't see whatever the scenario is. We're going to turn around. Or no, it's only in this. It's just for this morning. It's supposed to be really bad. And then in the afternoon, it's clearing up and the next 3 days are all sunny. You're like, all right, we'll either stay in place for this day or we'll move further to a safer place that's a little bit in the trees so we're not in the storm. You can keep adjusting to your weather. So they've done a really good job of making this a device that like you're going to use, not just it sits in your backpack and hope that you never have to pull it out. right? There, you can use it in so many ways that it actually helps you and your trip. And again, it saves you time, energy, and money. So it does all these things that I think are really important. And not everybody's going to use them all the time, but for the people that do, you're like, oh, wow, this is super cool how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a lot of bang for your buck.
They're on
Man.
sale till June 15th. They're $199.
There you go, everyone.
So-
See, this is why sponsors love working with you.
What's funny is I told them, you shouldn't make this cheaper. I said, if you want to give people a deal, give them a free month. Because once you lower the price, people think like, one of the things with Zoleo that I find is when you lower the price, people think it's half the price at InReach. Some people might think that it's not as good as an InReach. What in my mind, it's better. So you lower it to a cost. They do it because obviously in marketing and all that sort of stuff. But once people pay $199, they never want to pay $269 for it. I tell people like at $269, it's a deal. But like at $199, it's awesome. Like it's an amazing deal. $199. The one I use today is like what the company's is at 40. It's been out for 4 or 5 years. And I had mine a year before. I can get a new one if I want, but I've been using the same one. It goes everywhere on my sled all winter in packs, in pockets. It goes mountain biking, gets thrown in puddles, water. I never had a problem with it, it's amazing. Sponsorship wise, if I damaged it, I could get another one, but I haven't. So it's not me just saying that this is the same one I originally got. I can show you the IME number is like when they sent it to me as the first, not even on the assembly line. It was just like the in B concept, right? Here it is, and I'm still using it.
So to keep a piece of technology for a while, that's pretty good. That's pretty
good.
Yeah,
they do have updates, right? So any updates will come through via online. If someone's having an issue, people can always message me through my socials and say, hey, I'm having this problem. The first question is always, have you done an update? And then you do it. Fixes the problem, right? Because they have updates that add things or improve, like your phone, like anything. There's masters behind the scenes that are creating a better user experience for all the users of Zoleo. People always like, what's the difference? How many different devices are there? Like, there's only one. Like you buy a Zoleo and it hasn't changed, looks the same, does the same stuff other than the improvements and the updates that come, which I love, right? There's nothing worse than, oh, here's our new one. Now the old one's worthless.
Yeah, I think that's what scares people with a lot of technology is they're like, oh God, is this thing going to be made obsolete in the next 6 months?
Yeah, I know all the people at Zoleo. It's just an amazing group over there, and they really, they love it. It's like someone, they literally are saving lives, right? There's been so many good stories that are insane, way better than my story, right? Like a guy that they hunt and they get a deer or moose and all of a sudden the grizzly bear's on them and gets the friend and they call the backup and the helicopter lands and the guy survives and like really brutally injured by this grizzly bear. And you're just like, holy cow. Can you imagine if you didn't have anything and you're out there hunting with your buddy and he's massively injured and this just is happening to you?
Oh, we did a story on Explore a few years ago about a guy who got attacked by a grizzly in the backwoods of the Sunshine Coast. And yeah, he survived, barely. Yeah. Zoleo would have made it a whole heck of a lot easier. Admittedly, maybe not as harrowing a story, but that's what you want. Ultimately, these things save you from those harrowing stories. They turn a life and death situation into an inconvenience, a quick rescue or something like that. That's really what you want. These stories are cool, but you don't really want to be the central character in them, actually.
No, totally. It's not to be over dramatic. I consider myself lucky for how long I've been out there doing all these things. And then you never had to call search and rescue. But at the same time, it could happen tomorrow. And that's why I carry it. You can go out there and do all these fun and extreme things with different people in different sports. And you just have a simple backup plan. And seriously, the sad part is you're ahead of like 80% of the population.
Really interesting stuff, Dave. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for so long and sharing your wisdom. How could people keep up with you? Do you have social media we could follow you or a website? Or if someone wanted to see what you're up to, how would they do that?
First, before I say that, I want to thank you because you're changing, seriously, this is not just me blowing sunshine. You're changing people's perspective by doing this. I love the magazine and the online stuff. I follow it all the time. And it's also good to see Canadian stuff too, right? But people can follow me easily. I'm on Instagram, Dave Norona. Norona is spelled Norona, just like Corona beer, as I like to say, but with an N.
There you go.
Or on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel that's pretty small, but people can, if they have 80 questions on any sports or related or safety things or whatever, more than welcome to hit me up there. We can have a phone call or at that point, or we can just do text, whatever is simple.
That's an
Not on
amazing
TikTok.
offer.
My daughter's happy. I'm not dancing too much.
Yeah. That's okay. We can leave that one for the kids, right? We can leave that one for
Yeah,
the kids.
exactly.
Awesome, Dave. Thanks so much again. I really enjoyed the conversation. I love the energy, love the passion, and I think anyone who's listening will feel that and get inspired. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll chat again.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. Dave is full of energy, and I love it. Man, he really showed me a few ways I can improve my life and a few things I can use to improve the lives of those people around me who are sometimes worried about me when I go in the backcountry or disappear for a few days. But overall, I was just inspired by his infectious enthusiasm and his really fascinating story about just bootstrapping himself into the life that he wanted. Of course, Zoleo is a big part of it these days. To learn more about Zoleo's products, surf on over to Zoleo.com to find out more about that amazing product. And don't forget to follow Dave on Instagram at Dave Norona. And of course, while you're at it, follow Explore Magazine on Instagram. But above all, get out there, have fun, be safe, stay in touch, and hey, live the adventure.